progressive vision of what he wanted to see from a cultural perspective as we built out this team. It's easy in the NBA, it's easy in sports generally to say that you want to have a good culture. I think it's an altogether different animal to really explicitly define what is our DNA, what do we want to be about. Working collaboratively with Robert on that. That's a massive part of why we are where we are today is his vision, his trust in me to execute that vision. So just wanted to hit on those two things at the outset. But that being said, let me open it up.
Thanks, Zach. Just a couple of notes before we get diving into questions. We will not have recording capability for this, but we will be able to send you a file on request promptly. So please reach out to a member of Grizzlies PR if you do need the file for this recording. Also, please keep yourself on mute if not speaking to avoid any background noise. And we will be taking questions with the hand raise feature. So if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll get started.
Great.
Parker Fleming.
Hey, Zach, can you hear me?
Yeah. How's it going, Parker?
Doing good. Hope you're doing well as well. So with this run this season, does it change anything towards you and Jason and Robert's plan towards building sustainable success? Does it change just the steps on how to achieve that?
No, I mean, I'm glad the fact that we keep saying sustainable success is sinking in and it comes in the questions now, because you'll definitely get sick of hearing me say it, but that's still what we're focused on. I mean, we're continuing to take the long view. Building towards long-term sustainable success is still the North Star. That's how I'm going to judge progress. That's how we're going to continue to operate. I'm pleased with the foundation that we've established this year. I'm pleased with the growth that we've seen from the group. I'm pleased with how we, competed, especially as the games, kind of went on and went down to the wire, in the bubble. But, as we pick up at the end of the season, as we work towards this off season, and as we work through next season, I mean, the focus is still going to continue to be, how are we building a team that's going to compete for championships in Memphis over time?
Peter Edmiston.
How have you guys dealt with the uncertainty with regard to dealt with the uncertainty with regard to all the financial implications of COVID, the league revenue situation being what it is? There's really so much up in the air. How do you guys plan in the long, short, medium term for all of that sort of thing? And how has Robert specifically been talking to you about those issues with him?
Yeah, I mean, carefully. We're dealing with a significant information gap, which makes it difficult to make, informed decisions at kind of every step of the way. But, all I can really say as it pertains to future planning is we have a lot of different, models, scenarios that we're working through. We're ready, to kind of pivot based off of whatever, kind of information comes our way. But, from Robert, from me to Taylor, we're going to be working collaboratively with the information that, that ultimately, comes ahead of us. And we're going to make, decisions that position us, well to, compete in the long term.
Evan Barnes.
Zach, how's it going?
Good, Evan. How are you?
Good. You guys obviously are, I remember you said in February you guys are likely expecting to, that pick will be conveyed tomorrow in the lottery. So as far as just looking ahead to what the plans are going to be, you guys are obviously high on D'Anthony and what Josh has done. Have you guys figured out kind of yet, what those plans will be, or is it still being worked out, kind of like how interested you are with bringing both those guys, or what you're going to do with both those guys?
Yeah, so to unpack that, I mean, as it pertains tomorrow, the lottery will play out how it plays out. I mean, all I'll really say at this point is we're ready. We've done our homework, and however things land, if we somehow happen to move up, versus if the pick is finally conveyed and we move ahead with a clean slate for next year, we'll be prepared for either scenario. As it pertains to our guys heading into free agency. Obviously can't talk about the specifics of free agency, but I mean, I'll hit on Josh, then I'll hit on D'Anthony. And I'm proud of Josh. We sat down. I sat down with him, kind of one-on-one at the outset of the season and laid out, a a plan without much daylight as to, kind of the steps that he, we wanted to see him take, on the court and off the court to have an opportunity with the team. And Josh followed through on that. So, I'm pleased with, what we saw there. And, as it pertains to D'Anthony, I mean, I think his impact on the court and what we were able to do with him, I think that speaks for itself. I think D'Anthony's been a great fit off the court with the guys. I think he's been a great, fit on the court with the guys. And, we pride ourselves on guys who, play winning basketball, who impact basketball games in a meaningful way. And we definitely saw a lot of that from D'Anthony this year.
Looks like not everyone has access to the hand raise feature, so we'll be taking questions in the chat moving forward. Joe Mullinax.
Hey, Zach, how are you doing?
Good, Joe. Good to see you.
Good to see you. I am curious as to your perception of this bubble experience. Obviously, you guys played 65 games before the season was suspended. Then you go to Orlando. You have this restart, 9 games being played, including the play-in. When you're making decisions like with D'Anthony, Josh, free agency, how are you weighing their performance in the bubble as compared to the more macro view of the overall season?
Yeah, I mean, I think all of the information, matters, as it informs decision-making. As to the bubble, specifically, I'm just proud of how our guys competed. I mean, despite, some, 3 injuries, to key guys, and some narrow losses in games that were, very, very competitive, out of the gate, our guys stuck with it. I mean, I think you saw, kind of across the league, the impact that the bubble had. I think there were a lot of, and everyone missed their family. I missed my wife. A bunch of people within the organization. Of course, that's a difficult circumstance on one hand, but I do think our guys bought in. I think they stayed poised. I think they remained competitive, even when the circumstances were admittedly, difficult there. So I'm proud of, kind of what I saw from our guys there in the big picture sense.
Thank you.
Mike Sadie.
Hey, Zach, how are you?
Good, Mike. How are you?
Pretty good. When we first talked to you at the beginning of the year, you used the term meaningful basketball. You would grade this team on the playing meaningful basketball down the stretch. Didn't end like you wanted to, but how would you grade out this season with what you accomplished? Because there was meaningful basketball as you build this team down the road.
Yeah, and I think honestly that all kind of comes back to what we're trying to do long term. I think there's a genuine benefit for what we're trying to accomplish in the long term to play those meaningful basketball games that you allude to. And we not only played, a couple, what would have, of course, been great to, have played more and play the Lakers and whatever else. But, we played meaningful basketball games down the stretch. And I think in that, the final game of the seeding games against Milwaukee and sure, they didn't play a couple of their guys, kind of whatever. But I think we played well enough, to have a chance to win against any team in the NBA that night. And I think we played well enough to have a chance to win against any team in the NBA, in the play-in game against Portland as well. That's a team that just knocked off the Lakers last night in game 1 of the playoffs and is playing some excellent basketball. So do I wish we, knocked them off? Of course, but credit to them for, how well they've played, now that they're, kind of in full strength. But I'm really proud of how our guys competed in those games. And from the long-term perspective, having, the experience of playing in those games, I do think that's meaningful.
Drew Hill.
Hey, Zach. Obviously, when you drafted John Morant a year ago, there were super high expectations. But being able to accomplish what he's done this year, especially to end the way that he did in the play-in game, did he exceed those expectations?
I mean, yeah, there's not, I don't think there are words to capture, adequately what we've seen from Ja so far. We had high hopes, for Ja when we brought him into our program. As a person, as a player, I mean, he's nothing short of spectacular. I mean, when he suffered that avulsion fracture and, was playing through pain in those games, I mean, there was zero doubt in Ja's mind that he was going to play. And he competed at an incredibly high level, over the entirety of the season, but very much in those games as well. He set the all-time record for points in an NBA play-in game, going back the history of the entire NBA. So that's a special one. But no, I mean, we're incredibly fortunate to have John. Can't wait to continue building around him. He's a special guy.
Akiko Yamawaki.
Hi. How do you evaluate Utah's improvement over the last 2 seasons? And also, I would like to ask you, is there any possibility to discuss with them regarding, next contract?
Yeah, I've been really pleased with the growth that we've seen from Yuta, from when he joined our program a couple of years ago to the player that we see now. I think he's an incredibly hard worker, but I think you can see some genuine improvement in his game. I think you can see, he's become a more and more reliable shooter. I think he's become a more assertive offensive player. And he's a player whose IQ, I think, shines through as well. So I'm encouraged with the growth that we've seen from Yuta. With all these guys, it's too early to speculate on free agency and what comes next, but I'll leave it at there. We're pleased with what we've seen.
Clayton Collier. Clayton.
Zach, can you hear me?
Yeah, Clayton, how's it going?
Good, how are you? Just when you look back, on Twitter, it seemed like every game inside the bubble there was the mention of, friendly reminder that both Brandon Clarke and Ja Morant were taken in the same draft. Do you look at that and just see how you guys basically hit the lottery on two fronts, essentially? Do you allow yourself to enjoy the success you had in that first year?
Yeah, On Ja, we're incredibly fortunate that the balls bounced, our way the way that they did. It's rare, in any draft to get a player who's as generational of a talent as Ja is. Fully expect him to be unanimous rookie of the year. On Brandon, I don't think there's enough you can say either. I'm still kind of at a loss for how, Brandon slipped to 21st in the draft, but here we are at the end of the season. I'm at a loss for how Brandon wasn't a finalist for rookie of the year. I don't see how that's not Ja 1, Brandon 2. Maybe people still aren't paying enough attention to what's happening here in Memphis, but you could look at any holistic impact stat and you could see that Brandon, was one of the very best. He's number one in a lot of those holistic, impact stats. We've watched him, game in and game out. The impact that he has on games, whether he has the ball in his hands or not, he's an absolute winner. We're lucky to have him, and I couldn't be more excited to build with both of those guys.
Philip Dean.
Hi, Zach. Can you hear me?
How's it going, Philip?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
With your first year in this position, is there a moment that sticks out to you that you feel proudest of the most?
I really it all kind of comes down to the culture building. I think that's where we kind of take the most pride. Both organizationally, kind of me in my role. Working with Robert. Sitting down and saying, this is what we want to be about. And then being very exacting and being very diligent in the follow through of, it's easy to say you want to have a good culture, but to follow through in that, kind of every day and see that actually grow and bear fruit and see, putting aside everything else, just the competitive spirit and guys, stepping up when, when people are counting them out, when our back's against the wall. I'm encouraged by that.
Terry Davis.
How you doing, Zach?
Good. How are you?
Hey, man, you hit a home run with Brandon Clarke, but in this current situation, how can you be sure you can probably hit another home run in evaluating talent in the certain situation climate?
I'm sorry, it was breaking in and out over the course of that question. Was I hearing that okay, or were others able to hear that?
Let's try again, Terry.
Yeah, so let me take a stab at it. I think I heard, some piece of that being about, kind of the process for evaluating talent. So let me just, kind of try to hit on that. I mean, as it pertains to, anyone on our roster, kind of putting aside specific needs or anything else. I mean, we do have a relatively systematic process of what we, kind of want to see as a player, from a mental makeup perspective. You've kind of heard me talk about it, but guys who are
you hit a home run last year by you in town with Brian Clarke. How do you do new talent in the situation?
Got it. So yeah, no, in terms of, how we evaluate talent, I think a lot of it really starts with, kind of the personality, the character, the makeup of the individual. We really prioritize guys with high basketball IQ, guys who are unselfish, guys who are motivated to improve. The biggest thing is, at the end of the day, is that we want to bring on individuals who, prioritize the team and prioritize winning, over themselves. I think you can see that, with a lot of what we have now, and that's going to continue to be, those are going to continue to be guiding principles as we, continue to build this team.
Cassie Carlson.
Reflecting on the season with a young team, why was a young coach the one that made the perfect fit to get the most out of these guys?
Yeah, I mean, it has nothing to do with age, and it has, kind of everything to do with the work habits and the, commitment to, communicating effectively at all different levels. It's the commitment to collaboration. And I mean, I would just, I'd give Taylor a ton of credit for how we stayed poised, how we stayed competitive. Those were very different, difficult circumstances in the bubble from, I kind of can't say enough about what it meant to lose Tyus, in the bubble, where I think Tyus, in terms of facilitating, kind of the flow of that second unit. Our second unit was incredibly effective this year, and to lose Tyus, and Tyus will be fine. He was dealing with some swelling, not something that, you can comfortably, kind of play through, but missing that and Taylor figuring it out, but by the end of those seeding games of the right kind of buttons to push of how we could play, really competitive basketball games against great NBA teams. I would give Taylor a ton of credit. I've really, enjoyed being in the foxhole, working with Taylor, collaborating on all of these things. And he and his staff they've done a heck of a job. So I'm encouraged with what I've seen from that group.
Joe Molinax.
Yeah, I'm curious as to, with Jaren Jackson Jr., obviously before his injury in the bubble, he did a really fine job developing as a leader. Obviously his skill set, taking players off the dribble, all those things. We saw real growth from Jaren, and then, of course, the injury occurred. Just what your basic takeaways from Jaren's development as a player and as a leader going into that injury, and then if you're able to, any potential updates on the injury he sustained now that you guys are back.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me kind of just start with Jaren generally, and then I'll give you the updates on both him and Justise. I mean, I can't say enough, remarkable things about what we've seen from Jaren. He worked as hard as anyone, during the hiatus. Really, weird, difficult time to navigate, I think for everyone. But Jaren's, quality of work and desire to continue to improve his game, really up there with anyone on the team. And you could see it, in the early games, but before he was injured in the bubble. I think on the offensive end, his ability to put the ball on the floor and get all the way to the rim and finish emphatically, that's something he'd been working on, his finishing package. And I think just his overall impact on the game, I think it was felt. We were a much, much better, team when Jaren was on the court, during those games. So I've seen a ton of growth with Jaren. We just can't wait to get him back. Jaren had successful surgery last week. It's not something you mess around with the torn meniscus. You want to get in there quickly. His meniscus has been repaired 100%. A very good result there. He's back in Memphis. He's going to be doing his rehab in Memphis. He's already diving in, and he's just going to be – he's got to put in the work. He's going to have a full recovery. There's nothing about what happened that's going to, be a setback whatsoever of what Jaren's going to be able to do long term. But yeah, I mean, an absolute – it got it, to lose Jaren, particularly, when we did, during the games in the bubble. And it was – I mean, I feel so bad for Justise. I mean, Justise, if you recall, that the team had landed in Portland when the season went on hiatus back in March, and Justise was going to make his debut that game. Justise had a really good first 2 weeks, before he got hurt while we were scrimmaging, practicing with the guys. We're all very encouraged. I think with what we've seen from the fit there, gets along with the guys, really seems ready to take on a leadership role within this group. But then, for him to go down too, I mean, just painful injuries, painful timing. We were just excited to, start to see what he could, kind of bring to this group. But, with Justise, zero existing hip pathology, freak injury, just an unfortunate, thing that happened. But, not non-surgical for Justise. Justise is making great progress. He's going to be here. He's going to finish out the rehab here. He's bought in on what we're doing, and we just can't wait to get him, fully integrated, on the court, because credit to Justise. I mean, you guys saw, I think a lot of other players who had less significant injuries who just decided to leave the bubble, or players who, did not have injuries, had, other reasons to leave the bubble. And Justise easily could have packed it in and said, no, I'm going home. He decided to stay. He wanted to support his teammates. He recognized that, this was a really formative opportunity for him to, make an impact on this group. And Justice's positivity, Justise pulling guys aside and encouraging them, along the way while we were in an admittedly, difficult stretch of games. That made a real impact on our ability to, I think, kind of turn things around and end on a relatively high note. So I give Justise some real credit for how he carried himself.
Thank you.
For one more question, Mike Sadie.
Zach, on that note, there is no concern organizationally, though, about the future of Justise because, again, the injury, this last one, not his fault. Any concern at all about an injury history with him?
No, I mean, again, like his back injury, that he was dealing with over the course of the season, he was fully recovered. He was in great shape. He was ready to go, and he had no prior history of back injuries. And, this hip injury that he suffered, again, there's no prior history there. So it's hard to, draw any conclusions other than, that there were freak incidents. He's excited to get healthy. We're excited to get him healthy. So it's unfortunate. Yeah, he's had a couple injuries, and it is what it is. But we're just excited to get him back.
All right, Zach, I appreciate you joining us today.
Great. Thank you all very much. Everyone, please stay safe, okay?
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you.